Welcome to KTJ webinar. Today's topic is safeguarding. What is safeguarding? How important is it? What do we do at KTJ for safeguarding? My name is Suresh Naidu. I'm the head of secondary in charge of pastoral care.
Yeah, good evening. And my name is Chris Davis. I am the deputy head of primary school. Now, together, Suresh and I, we are the co-leaders of the safeguarding team at KTJ. And we're really pleased to be able to speak to you tonight. Now, this webinar will last about 30 minutes. There'll be approximately 20 minutes for the presentation and 10 minutes for questions. Now, during the presentation, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, then please do type it into the chat function, and I'll bring these questions up during the final 10 minutes for us to answer.
So we'll go through some key points that we're going to be covering in this webinar first. The first part will cover the school policy. What do we base it on and what it includes? A written policy without implementation is a policy without effect. We do not do that at KTJ. We will describe what we do to implement the safeguarding policy in this school. Next, we hope to raise parents and the community's awareness of this important SOAC Act that safeguards children in Malaysia. And finally, we will share some development in this area that goes to further support safeguarding of children in Malaysia.
Thank you, Suresh. And again, hello to everyone who has joined this evening. Now, I'm really pleased to be able to have the opportunity to be able to discuss safeguarding with you all and what this looks like here at KTJ. Now, it's such an important part of our school culture. So on the screen, you can see the question there, what is safeguarding? Well, simply put, safeguarding is the actions that we take to promote the welfare of children and protect them from harm. Now, it's sometimes easier to understand this as the proactive measures that we take to ensure that children are protected and that they remain safe. Now, here at KTJ, we understand that safeguarding is everybody's responsibility. It's not just down to house parents or the teachers of the school or school leaders. Everybody has a responsibility to make sure that children are safe and happy. Now, at KTJ, we're proud of our commitment to this process, and it's something that's part of the school's culture, our ethos, and our practices. Now, in terms of things that are more specific, what does safeguarding mean? Well, it can actually means lots of things. And these might include protecting children from abuse and maltreatment. It's about preventing harm to children's health or development. It's about ensuring that children grow up with the provision of safe and effective care. And it's about taking action to enable all children and young people to have the best outcomes. Now, when we discuss safeguarding, and when you perhaps have heard of this in the past, you might have come across the term child protection. Now, to help explain a little bit about the differences between the two, child protection is actually part of the safeguarding process. And it focuses on protecting individual children that are identified as suffering or likely to suffer from significant harm. Now, this includes child protection procedures which detail how to respond to concerns about a child as well. I mentioned a moment ago that safeguarding was the proactive measures that we take. Well, child protection refers more to the reactive measures that the school might take if we're concerned that a child is suffering or they're being abused or they're likely to be. Now, at KTJ, I'm really proud of the work that we've done in recent times to cultivate an environment and to continue to prove where safeguarding is central to all of the things that take place in school. And that's whether that's in the primary school or in the secondary, whether someone's a day boarder or they're a full boarder. It also applies to all of our staff, and I'll mention those a little bit later on in this presentation. We all have the same commitment to keeping children safe, and that applies to all of our employees, from our trustees through our school leaders, our academic teaching staff. It applies to our medical, our maintenance, our catering staff, our administrative staff. Safeguarding is always at the forefront of our actions and our decisions. Now, to help guide and underpin this, we have a clear and robust safeguarding policy, and that helps us to provide clear guidance and expectations and support for all of the stakeholders at KTJ. Our policy is available to all parents and visitors to our school website, and it really is something that I would recommend that you read to learn more about our practices and the policy in general. Now, as a sort of a prerequisite, all of our staff and volunteers at KTJ must read and commit to acting according to this policy as a condition of their employment. And the policy is in alignment with the CIS Code of Ethics. It's in compliance with this year's safeguarding objectives. Now, encouragingly, safeguarding is becoming more widely developed in Malaysia. But naturally, we ensure that obviously we want to make sure we abide by our legal responsibilities in terms of looking after children and keeping them safe. But we also strongly believe that we can sort of go above and beyond that. And so in many areas, we do just that. One of these areas, and certainly something which underpins our safeguarding policy, is our reference to a UK government publication called Keeping Children Safe in Education. And that outlines the core principles in terms of recruiting safely, how we identify and address safeguarding concerns. The UK is widely regarded as one of the world leaders in terms of child protection and safeguarding, and it's something which we look to instill in our practices as well. Now, this safeguarding policy for ourselves, it's an evolving document, and we acknowledge that we need to stay up to date with best practice, both domestically and internationally, to ensure that we are keeping children safe. Now, at KTJ, like I said, we're committed to providing the best possible care and education to our students, and to safeguarding and promoting the welfare of students at all times. But we expect all members of our staff to share this commitment, and we're also committed to providing a supportive working environment for all of our staff as well. We recognise that in order to achieve these aims, it's fundamental that we are able to attract and recruit and retain staff of the highest calibre and that share that commitment to safeguarding. As part of our staff recruitment procedures, everyone must undergo a background security police check to confirm their suitability to work with children, and they're also given ongoing training once employed. Our safeguarding policy also gives clear courses of action for reporting any concerns that staff have about a child's safety or well-being. So, for example, if a disclosure has been made to a member of staff, and this is reported through a note of concern, and then that's passed on to safeguarding leaders who will take appropriate action and investigate further. Central to this process is ensuring that students' safety and well-being is the main priority, like I said, and all of our actions within this are underpinned by that thought. Now, if having raised a child protection concern about a child with a safeguarding lead, a member of staff perhaps might not be or feels that the leader's actions have not gone far enough, then there is a possibility for them to raise the matter with principal, or if the principal is implicated, then they're able to raise that with the chairman of trustees. So it really makes sure that we've got a really robust policy that enables that to happen. The school's whistleblowing policy does detail further steps on how this would happen in this instance. Now, I mentioned previously that safeguarding is everybody's responsibility at KTJ. Now, we know just how important safeguarding is, and so we have a really, really effective safeguarding team that consists of myself and Suresh, as I mentioned earlier, as the respective leaders for primary and secondary. And we've also got a really well-trained and unbelievably committed group of staff who are able to help drive our safeguarding practices forward and sort of take the development to the next stage as we look forward as well. Now, as a group, we meet regularly to discuss whole school safeguarding issues such as staff training, updates to key policies, changes in law, and how we can further embed a safeguarding culture within the school. An example of this is sort of our weekly communication, which the safeguarding team send to all staff, entitled Safeguarding on Saturday, and that will help keep staff up to date with any changes or important announcements that we feel are important to know. And we also recognise that, and we're very proud of the fact that we want to be able to facilitate this for all of our staff. We've got staff who come from a wide range of different cultures, countries and backgrounds. And so to enable us to support them, all of our staff training and updates are communicated in a variety of different languages, such as English and Malay and Tamil.
The most important stakeholder at KTJ is our students. It is important for our students to also have safeguarding awareness. This includes their interaction with adults, in and out of school, during school trips, and elsewhere. It also includes peer-on-peer interaction. We strengthened our safeguarding policy, particularly to address peer-on-peer abuse. As Chris mentioned just now, I invite you to read the policy. It's very thorough and is available on the school website. We raise safeguarding aspects during school assemblies. In the secondary school, we send regular reminder emails to all students in the secondary school via the email address. We also have many posters displayed around school. These posters act as constant reminders of safeguarding for the whole community. The contact details for seeking help for reporting concerns are displayed on these posters.
Thank you, Suresh. Now, I talked previously about how, as a requirement to work at KTJ, employers must all have successfully passed background, security, and police checks. However, given our context and the fact that we have a large number of boarding students, we know that there are regularly external visitors that need to come onto the school site to carry out essential work or services. For example, we have many vendors who come onto sites. They are police checked, even though they may be employed externally. Additionally, all of our external sports coaches and music tutors or other specialist ECA staff, they undergo specific safeguarding training with the school before they're able to work with any students. And of course, we do also make sure that they have passed the relevant security and police checks, which I mentioned earlier. Now, of course, given the fact that we are a school, we're a very busy place and environment, and that's the way we want it to be. But there will often be times when we have visitors to the school who don't visit us on a regular basis. And so it's important that we have a really robust procedure to make sure that they are able to sort of abide by our rules and guidelines at school. So on these occasions, we have a system in place to ensure that visitors are accompanied by our security guards, that they're registered and they're checked in, and then they are passed on to a member of staff who receive them at an appropriate meeting point. So there should never really be a point where we have a visitor on the school site who has either not been inducted and had safeguarding training and police checks, or is not with a member of staff who is accompanying them around the site.
So what happens when there is a concern? This is where we go back to our school values. One of our school values is integrity. We will conduct the following steps with integrity. When a concern is raised, we begin by collecting all available information. This includes interviewing everyone who might be able to share information. This is done in a confidential manner. This is important in order to protect and safeguard the interests of the child. The key word here is the interest of the child. We proceed carefully and in according to the training that we have been given. The key point, as I mentioned, is the interest of the child, and this comes first, and we will take all available steps to safeguard the child. In 2017, the SOAC Act came into being in Malaysia, the Sexual Offences Against Children Act. As a school, we were delighted to see this as it focuses on the interest of safeguarding children from sexual abuse. Prior to this, offences against children came under the Broad Criminal Act, which covers all sexual offences, be it against children or adults. This act is specific in its intent, that is, to protect children. And it is important for parents to know the main points of this. I will now play a video that was produced by the newspaper The Star. It summarizes the 9 key points.
You may have heard of the Sexual Offences Against Children Act 2017. It's a new law that provides for stronger protection for children against sexual assault, including sexual grooming, which Rach helped push forth through our Predator in Our Phone series. It was passed in Parliament on the 4th of April and gazetted on the 7th of July, which means it is now in motion. Here are the things you need to know about our new laws. 1. We finally have laws against sexual grooming. Sexual grooming means befriending a child with the intention to commit a sexual offense. So if you're the kind of guy that likes to go, hey, boleh jadi kawan tak, with an underage child, this one's for you. 2. Failure to report a crime is a crime. If you witness a crime and you fail to report it, you could face up to 5,000 ringgit in fines. 3. Higher punishments for people in positions of trust. That means parents, teachers, doctors, anyone who's supposed to be protecting the child in the first place. When these people commit a crime under this new law, they will be punished harsher, with an additional 5 years and a whipping of no less than 2 strokes. 4. Evidence of a child witness can now be admitted uncorroborated. In the past, courts used to admit the testimony of a child only if it was corroborated by other evidence. That's because children make things up, like Santa Claus, sexual assault. Only experts tell us that sexual assault is the one thing children almost never lie about. They just don't have the context to make things like that up. Now, evidence from a child is presumed to be credible by default. Of course, the law does make the court responsible for first finding out if the child is a reliable witness. 5. Evidence from agents provocateurs are admissible. Evidence given by someone who went undercover can now be admissible in court. This gives police the incentive to go out and nab a predator, but it also brings up issues of entrapment. 6. Child porn. We already have laws against porn in general, but with the new law, it's going to be a much bigger crime to watch, sell, or make child porn. Anyone caught making, selling, or watching child porn can face up to 30 years in jail and a whipping of no less than 6 lashes. Right now, just watching or selling normal porn could land you a fine of up to 10,000 ringgit, so that's important to know. 7. Sexual offenses against a child now include non-physical sexual assault, to which we say, about time. This includes exposing a child to anything sexual, either through speech, action, or visual representation. 8. Presumption of age of a child. Sorry, but she looked 18 is no longer a viable defense unless the offender took all reasonable steps to find out the age of the child. 9. Sexual offenders will now be put under police supervision for at least 1 year and at most 3 years after their release, which probably sucks more for the police officer than it does for the offender. But it keeps us all safe.
As I mentioned, as a school, we are delighted to see this act is now in place. It empowers everyone who is involved in safeguarding children. It goes to support people who are involved in dealing with cases, such as shown in the next slide. 2 weeks ago, the Star reported that 48% of reports that the UK-based Internet Watch Foundation received were regarding imagery showing children aged 11 to 13. 92% of the imagery was of female children. Even more shocking is that 1% of the imagery was of infants. This calls for all local agencies and schools to respond to safeguard our young people. A positive development in this area is the UK-based IWF and the local NGO, Childline Foundation, is going to launch a reporting platform in Malaysia this month. This is an anonymous reporting platform, and it aims to remove all reported imagery within 24 hours. This empowers our young people to act on their own to remove any imagery they might have mistakenly shared. We hope to see further strengthening of provisions to safeguard children in Malaysia.
Thank you, Suresh. Now, on the slide in front of you now that you can see are the members of our safeguarding team. Now, like I mentioned earlier, I'm so proud of the sort of work that the group does. We've got such an excellent group of staff who are all amazingly committed to helping KTJ be a place where children and parents are confident that we're doing everything that we can to keep your children safe. In terms of the makeup of the team, we have representatives from both across the primary and the secondary school, and we've got a broad range of individuals from a range of cultures and backgrounds and experiences of both male and female. And so we like to think that we've got a really great team who are able to support and drive safeguarding forward in the school. Now, we recognise and we're proud of our responsibility to safeguard young children, and children should know that whilst they can contact any member of staff at KTJ, Myself and Suresh, and Miss Anna, Mr. Thor, Mr. Jesse, and Miss Farah are always willing and able to listen and help them should they need to. Certainly students and hopefully parents, you'd have seen our faces around school on posters, which help to remind students of our roles. And there's also details of how they can contact us as well. We also make sure that we try to regularly remind students and have a visible presence in assemblies and through other school events as well. Now, our key message, and one which we will continue to promote as a team and as a school here at KTJ, is that safeguarding is everybody's responsibility, though, and all of our staff carry this with them whilst working at KTJ. Okay, well, that brings our talk to its conclusion. Thank you for listening to Suresh and I today. I hope that this has given you a greater insight into what safeguarding is and the role that we at KTJ play in helping to keep your children safe. We now have some time allocated for question and answer. So thank you to those who have been sending those in via the chat function. And so we'll endeavour to answer some of them for you now.
Right, Chris, there is a question. Is that if a parent is worried about the safety or well-being of their own child or another child, what should they do?
Okay, thank you for that, Suresh. So yeah, absolutely. One of the things which I would make sure is, I really want to reiterate, is that as a school, we hope that we've got really clear communication channels. And so, like I mentioned a moment ago, we've got a really thorough and dedicated KTJ safeguarding team. And so if you do have worries or concerns about your child, or another child in the school, then we would encourage you to make contact with either Suresh or myself first as the safeguarding leaders. You would also have the opportunity to contact our principal, Dr. Glenn. But I think the most important thing is that you communicate that with us. We want to do everything that we can to support not just the child, but also the families and our KTJ community. So it's really important that you make contact with us. You give us as much factual information as you can, to make sure that we're really aware of the situation. And then from there, we will be able to take that further and we'll be able to investigate it from there.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Chris, if you don't mind me asking another question, is that, so if there is a safeguarding concern raised about a child, will the parents be notified?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Thank you, Suresh, and thank you to whoever posted that one on the chat. Now, as a rule of thumb, we will need to investigate any sort of safeguarding matter, and wherever we feel that it should be, you as a parent should be notified, then we would certainly look to do so. Like I said, we want to be able to support the child, but also you as a family, in order to sort of help improve the situation for any particular child. However, there will be some instances occasionally where if there was a safeguarding concern which was directly related to a parent or a member of the immediate family, and we felt that it was not appropriate to make that reference to yourselves as a parent at that time, then we would be bound and we would follow our procedures and the law in Malaysia. So we would follow the procedures for that. And so in some cases that might be making references to external agencies, and it wouldn't be appropriate at that time to contact you. However, we would always, where possible, try and make contact with parents to be able to let them know exactly what the situation is and how we can support them moving forward.
Right. There is another question which I will attempt to answer. That how does the school try to support and protect children during this difficult time of COVID-19? This lockdown has challenged all of us, whether at home or at school. As at KTJ, what we do is we network with the agencies around in the UK and elsewhere to find out what are the things that we should be aware of and what we should be doing, not just in terms of safeguarding, but also in terms of the well-being of our students. Our counselors are well placed to provide support for our students and have been continuously providing support despite the lockdown, despite being online. Messages and emails are sent regularly to our students to remind them that the services, counseling services at KTJ still functioning and to make contact should they find they need that support. Equally on safeguarding, we have we look through all the recommendations. We look at what we need to do as at KTJ, and we have informed our teachers of the safeguarding concerns while working online, what they need to be aware of, the steps that we put in place to safeguard our students and our teachers, as well as making sure that all the procedures that are in place are transparent and available to all teachers to access, all students to access. So we are doing everything that we can at the moment to make sure that safeguarding and well-being of our students are well taken care of.
Great, thanks, Suresh. There's another question that has come through as well. And I wonder, Suresh, whether you might be able to take this one. So the question says, how are you securely storing the information you hold on my child? And who has access to this information? And are you giving it to anybody else?
The security, the safeguarding is a confidential matter. And with integrity, we need to make sure that it remains confidential. With that, we need to make sure that the documentation is kept secure. At the moment, they are kept only at 2 places, at the primary school and Chris's office, in the secondary school in my office, and they are kept under locked cabinets. And our own offices are also locked. So we kept them securely, and access are only available to us, and should anybody else need to see it is upon request. We are at the moment exploring options to keep this information through secure and encrypted software. So we are looking at exploring a few options. We have now narrowed it down to 2. We have now trialing them. And should this prove to be useful for us in keeping our data secure and encrypted and confidential, we will act upon that. Now, who has access to it, and are you giving it to anybody else? As I said, the access are only available for Chris and myself as the safeguarding team leaders, and if we are going to give it to somebody else, it's only for the benefit of the child. Again, we come back to the question, in the interest of the child. If it's in the interest of the child for us to share the information, then only then we do. Even then, we will discuss it first among the safeguarding team. I will discuss it with Chris. Chris will discuss it with me before we actually release such information.
Thank you, Suresh. And there's another final question that's just come in on the chat as well. In the secondary school, do prospective parents often ask about the safety and well-being of the children?
Not as often as we would like. The questions are often about the academic performance, the quality of teaching and learning, boarding houses, question about sports facilities which are available, but not as frequently as we want to ask, how safe will my child be at school? What are the things that you are doing to make sure that you are providing a safe environment for my child? And these are the kind of questions that we would like to be asked more, because it falls directly under safeguarding and everything that we're doing to provide a safe environment for your child to progress academically and holistically in every area in the school and to perform as best as possible. And we urge parents and also prospective parents or even anybody else to always ask, not just on the academic front, but also on the safeguarding front. This is a key question that we should be asking as parents to any schools. Right, I think we are reaching the end of our time, Chris. So thank you everybody for your participation. A recording of this will be available later. Just let me bring this up. Now, these are the upcoming webinars under Pastoral Care. We have 2 concurrent webinars running on the 10th of June on sleep. One of the things that we often get asked by parents is, why is my child not sleeping? What can I do to assist sleep? How important is sleep for teenagers in particular, for example? How important is sleep, and what are the effects of sleep on young children, such as primary school? That's on the 10th of June. On the 15th of June, we have sex education for 15 to 18-year-olds. And on the 22nd of June, the use of mobile devices in secondary school. That is, again, a topic that often is asked by parents who want to understand how the mobile devices can be used effectively in education. And finally, on the 29th of June, as we're about to start our holiday then, is what can parents do to support the children's learning at home so that learning is ongoing and does not stop only at school. Chris, any last words?
No, I would just like to thank everybody for tuning in this evening. Like I mentioned earlier, safeguarding is such an important issue. It's something we take incredibly seriously here at KTJ, and it really does underpin everything that we do, all our decisions that we make. As Suresh said, we do it with the best interests of the child in mind. And so I thank you for tuning in this evening. And if you do have any other questions after this webinar, then please do feel free to contact either myself or Suresh, or anyone at school as well.
Chris, I'm just going to post another question, I'm afraid, because it's just come in. I think it's a very important question, and I'm going to put that up now. The question is that I wanted to be sure, how can we encourage the kids to discuss this kind of things, to discuss either with the teacher or to us, as often they feel shy to talk about such matters?
Okay. Yeah, so if I will sort of add some beginning, Suresh, and feel free to sort of add to what the message that I give. I think first and foremost, I think it is a very it's a very difficult subject for some children and for adults as well to be able to approach. I think one of the things which I would say is that if a child is ever in a position where they're going to make a disclosure or they want to talk about safeguarding, it will be a very, very big decision for them to be able to do so. It's not something which they would have just woke up and then thought, oh, I'm going to tell somebody. It would be a decision which they would think long and hard about. And I think it's really important that relationships are sort of built and developed over time where children are able to trust and they feel that they're going to be supported in their conversations that they may want to have. I think it's really important not to make children and students and young people feel pressurized that they have to talk when they're not ready to. I think that can sometimes have a negative effect and can actually sometimes sort of lessen their chances of engaging and talking about it. So I think being able to provide an environment where it's safe for them to talk with fear of or no fear of judgment is a really, really important thing to do. I think as a school, in terms of what we do as teachers and as educators and as staff, not just teachers and teaching assistants, but all of our staff here at KTJ, we want to make sure that children feel that we are approachable and that they're comfortable to come and discuss us. We want to make sure that we've got a presence around school with safeguarding and that children know exactly where they can come to.
And I would like to add to that. Is that on last Monday we had a webinar session on counselling, where the counselors, our counselor, Ms. Rachel Tan, spoke about how to approach children and how to get children to speak to parents or to students, to teachers. And the webinar was recorded and is now available on our YouTube page. That if you look for College Tuanku Jaafar in one word on YouTube, you will be able to find our channel. And then if you look for counseling, the webinar on counseling, which was published today, you will be able to see that and get more detailed answers. Right. So if you have further questions or suggestions of topics that you would like us to cover in future, please feel free to contact us via the email that you received when you registered for this webinar, or by contacting the school. Our contact details are available on our school website, www.ktj.edu.my. With that, thank you once again, and goodbye.